Hey guys, welcome back to the Another Excuse podcast. I'm your host, Byron Greeley, and today's guest is Nicolas Lognath, the co-founder of Omninela. Omninela is a solution that delivers healthcare products and services to people across South Africa. We have a very interesting conversation today where we discuss things like what it's like running a business with your brother, the steps that they took to bootstrap their business to grow it into what it is today, and how they took calculated risks along the way and how they decided to pivot. That's just the tip of the iceberg. We go into a lot more detail, discuss many interesting topics, and I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy this one. Enjoy the show. Nicolas, thanks for joining me today. I'm excited to get into your entrepreneurial journey, and just to start us off, could you tell us a bit about your business, Omninela, and what it does and how it works?
Absolutely. So what Omninella is a solution to deliver healthcare to more people across South Africa. So we currently have a online store where someone can purchase more than 10,000 healthcare or lifestyle related products. We've also got our medical practice certification for clinical services. So if you were a patient that needed products in the healthcare space, we would most likely be able to put through a claim on your behalf through your medical aid. And then once we receive the cash from the medical aid, be able to deliver to you. We also do some larger facility solutions, but that's more in the terms of hospitals and clinics and the management of any larger devices or products that they might need. But specifically to some of the retailer shoppers, audience that might be listening to this, essentially we've got our online store where we've got all the products, healthcare providers, and also the medical aid products that would be able to assist any one of those patients.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I always forget to ask this question, but is there a story behind the name? How did you come up with Omninela?
So Omninella, at the time when we first registered it, we just registered it as Omninella Solutions. So Omni was every or everything. Nella came from Sesotho, Bonela, to see, and solutions. So being engineers in our past, we essentially wanted to find or see every solution. And when we took the plunge to venture into the medical space, we then knew that Omninella Medical would then be our name that we would be known as to see all things medical. And we kind of let it roll from there.
Amazing. Yeah, a lot more thought went into your name than some other businesses who sort of just come up with something random.
We've always tried to be a little bit intentional about it. So it's the name and it's actually the logo as well. So the logo you'll see has two lines that are trying to beat themselves to get out of the box. So it's just another representation of how we try to present ourselves as out of the box thinkers and a company that thinks out of the box.
Oh, that's awesome. And you mentioned that you were originally an engineer, but Omninela is obviously in the health industry. So did you have experience in the health industry before starting? How did you decide to pursue this business?
So we didn't previously have any experience in the engineering in the healthcare space, but coming from engineering, we knew that we could solve problems. And at the time, we essentially just wanted to find a problem that we could solve, that we could really be effective in people's lives. So when we started to look for the problem to solve, we said, what will allow us to make the greatest impact to people's lives? And we chose healthcare as that area that we were going to penetrate into. And essentially, it's funny because people often ask us, why are engineers in the healthcare tech space? And we essentially have to say, why do banks employ engineers? They employ them to solve problems. So all we want to do is to be in the space to identify and solve problems with the capacity and mindset of an engineer, but in the healthcare space.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, was where you are now where you intended to be when you first started, or have you like pivoted along the way, and has the business taken many sort of life forms?
There's been a lot of pivots. I think for any young business, any startup business, if you aren't agile enough to pivot when the market needs you to pivot, there will be a breaking point. And for young businesses, you've got to pivot almost every quarter. So the way that Ricardo and I see it is that every 3 months, we treat as a single project. So every quarter, we treat as a project. And everything that we want during that quarter, we essentially set up our list of to-dos and we seek out to do them, but we don't know if it's really going to be as successful as we want it to be, or it's just going to be this term's quarter project. And by the end of the 3 months, then we'd have to come back, look at all of the things that we actually managed to do successfully and say, was this 3 month project a success or a failure? If it was a success, how can we compound on it? And if it was a failure, great. What did we learn from it, and what can we move forward with to either repeat the good things that we did and reduce the bad things that we did for the next 3 months ahead, or essentially just make sure that if we understand what the failures are, great. We appreciate that we understand what the failures are, and now we can move forward into the next quarter with a new project mindset in place and hopefully be able to deliver a better solution in that next quarter.
Yeah, that's so interesting and so important to do.
Mm.
But I'm curious, what did the original plan for Omninela look like? What did you set out to build initially?
So initially, we started out as a SAPRA licensed wholesaler and distributor. So when we first started, we identified I can't call it exactly a problem, but it was a need in the supply chain management departments of certain hospitals. So when we first started, I essentially went through to a hospital, and all I wanted to do is ask them, what problems are you currently facing? If we're able to deliver a solution to your problem, then please let us know if the solution that we're giving you is good enough. And if it's really good enough, then are you able to pay us to deliver the solution in your department? So at the beginning, we were SAPRA licensed wholesalers for medical devices. So a medical device is anything from a cotton swab all the way to a defibrillator machine and everything in between. So we just started out with diagnostics at first, small personal diagnostics metering systems like a glucometer, a cholesterol meter. And as we started to get more requests, then we started to build on the list of products we were able to do. So started out going into wholesale and trying to solve problems in supply chain departments, whether it was previous suppliers who weren't able to deliver on their commitments, or whether it was certain products that needed to be customized so that when it touches the supply chain department and needed to move into clinics or hospitals, it was already set up in a manner that makes nurses and doctors' lives 2 minutes or 1 minute easier, that they would rather pull our product off the shelf instead of another. And that's how we got started.
And you mentioned that you spotted this supply chain problem, but you'd expect a story like that to come from someone who worked in the health or medical industry. And it's like, oh, I was working, I noticed that this was a pain point for people, so I decided to solve it. But how did you come across that problem? Was it like intentional research, trying to look for a problem to solve?
Yeah, so we essentially look at it in two different ways. One, firstly, we're in South Africa. There's problems everywhere. If you could literally just point yourself in a direction of an industry and put your feet onto the ground in that industry and start asking the questions of what problems are being faced in the industry, and you will find an area for you to create a solution in. So when people ask us exactly what you did now, I tell them we live in South Africa. We've got a long way to go. We're not the first world countries. So all we need to do is to be able to find a small gap within a problem that is repeated enough times by multiple departments, corporates, companies, and supply the solution to that one small problem. And that's essentially the bread and butter for what we are going to push into. Two is that we personally kind of had family members who were affected healthcare wise in terms of monitoring their health. And we want to find out if we were able to deliver the solution just for these diagnostic meters. So we identified that clinics had many people in lines waiting to do simple diagnostic tests. And essentially, it would cost them as much to get to the clinic and get home again per month that it would if they just bought the metering device themselves. So we thought, let's cut out one problem, which was just to get more accessibility to diagnostics monitoring devices to people. And if we can supply that similar solution into bigger chains, then great. We'll probably start there and then roll out more solutions as we find problems inside of the supply chain department, which is exactly what we did. We just started with delivering one solution. And once one solution was delivered successfully and they were happy with our service, they were happy by how we do business, then essentially you're naturally going to get the ask, hey, by the way, we also have this problem. Can you assist with that too? And we say happily.
So interesting. I'm curious, how did you pick this particular industry? What drew you to it?
So we had friends in the industry already who started giving us a little bit of opportunity for certain healthcare products. So because we knew we had access to these healthcare products through our colleague, we thought if we are able to just have the conversation with a few supply chain departments about what these products can offer into the hospital themselves, maybe we'll then be able to assist a supply chain department to solve one of their problems, and we'll be able to kind of start a new venture in something that solves the first problem that we wanted to go into, which was healthcare, because for us, being as impactful as possible to people's lives came in the form of healthcare. Because at the end of the day, like COVID has taught us, all the money in the world doesn't mean much if your health isn't right in the first place. So it came to us as the most impactful industry for us to touch people's lives.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what gave you the urge to start your own thing?
So at the time, this was about 7 to 8 years ago, and myself and my brother Ricardo slash co-founder, we were both working in the industry. So I was working in the civil engineering industry in the consulting space, and Ricardo was working in the mechanical engineering industry in the shipping space. And at the time, I had a fantastic opportunity with a fantastic company, and I was working on this particular site it was a development site that was coming up in KwaZulu-Natal, and essentially being there gave me my first-hand experience of what solving real-life problems looks like. And as I started to communicate and just network with some of the business owners that were the contractors and the subcontractors and the consultants that were coming in, I quickly started to realize, hey, I'm here as the employed, engineer on site, but here's these guys that are not much older than me, in their 30s, mid 30s, and they've got fantastic companies doing fantastic turnover. What am I doing wrong that I am not able to be on that trajectory by the time I'm that age? So just opening up that can of worms started to get me to question what needs to happen for me to get to that space by the time I'm 32 to 35 years old myself. And immediately I had colleagues around me, mentors around me who started saying, Nick, why don't you have a look at a few resources? So it started out with like Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Then it went to Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And then from there, it was like Tim Ferriss, Robin Sharma, and everything started to roll on until the point where we kind of found some of the business orientated guys also the Gary V's and so on. And they kind of were the push. It was interesting because at the time, Gary Vee was a lot of the content that he put out was pusher content. He said, just get started because it's better than thinking about it and getting into analysis paralysis. So essentially, combining all of that information that I was receiving all at once suddenly started to like fuel this drive to say in me, I need to start my own thing. So I spoke to one of my colleagues who had his own business, and he said, Nick, the most difficult part about starting a business is actually registering the business. 99% of people have an idea and they think it can change the world, but they don't even take themselves online to register it, or they don't take themselves to the CIPC business office here to register the business. So they know there's some kind of black and white to the idea that they feel like starting. So he helped myself and my brother just understand the simple process of how you start a business and how you make everything compliant document wise. Once we knew we had that in place, we were like, all right, great. We've got a business. Now let's take some time to find the idea, find the industry that we want to be in, and find the problem that we wanted to solve. And ever since, it's just started to roll over. So I'm glad that I had the opportunity to be surrounded by some of those books and podcasts at the time that kind of instilled the drive in us to shift things, because we both don't come from an entrepreneurial family. My dad, fantastic man, I love him, is in the mechanical engineering space, but has groomed us to be engineers. And that's all we've known up until university and leaving university, getting into the working space. And it's only when we got into the working space that we were like, other guys are doing something really different to be in the positions that they are. What is it? And we just started picking people's minds and getting ourselves involved in this content. And that's what sparked the drive and sparked the go ahead to at least register the business and start creating a potential solution.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love all those books and podcasts you listed. I'm actually rereading Think and Grow Rich right now.
It's amazing.
So
yeah,
I really
it.
see the value. Yeah, it's an amazing book. And I'm curious, how much did you guys invest at the beginning? Like, how much risk did you take at the beginning?
So I can't say it's anything more than 5,000 Rand. All we had at the time was pretty much an allowance from our companies, because we were still working as like apprentices, juniors in the companies in our civil engineering, mechanical engineering spaces. So we were pretty much just paid enough to cover our monthly running expenses and fuel and vehicle expenses. And we kept a little bit aside. So essentially, we just kept enough aside, and that kind of accumulated to something around 5,000 Rand. And we said, with this 5,000 Rand, I'm sure we'll be able to register the company, maybe pay a designer or do it ourselves to create a little bit of a corporate image in terms of the logo and things like that, and a little bit of legal work also. And when we got our first order, we essentially just had to have the ability to talk to the suppliers that we needed to get the products from, to say, hey, we've got this confirmed purchase order here. We're only going to get paid in X amount of weeks. Are you able to just extend a small line of credit to us for this amount? Can you do it? And they said, yeah, sure. The purchase order looked good to them. The product seemed like something they had in stock very regularly, and they trusted our documents and us as jockeys to the business. And so they said, yeah, sure, not a problem. They extended a small line of credit to us. And essentially from there, we got our first order by that same supplier, and we were able to deliver our first products to our first client, who I, by God's grace, ended up putting my foot down to meet on one day that I was driving home. And thankfully, that one client has given us a lot of the structure that we needed to start growing and start putting deeper roots into the company. So yeah, for people that say, I don't have enough money to start a business, you know, think again, because if you just have really honest conversations with certain suppliers, they actually might believe in you enough to extend a line of credit to you. And that may allow you to purchase your first product, sell it off, keep the profit, pay back the supplier, and whatever profit you have, start rolling on that. And once the supplier knows that you are good for it the first time and the second time and the third time, then naturally the credit that they allow you may grow. And with that, your ability to make profit on that will also grow.
That's such an important lesson. A lot of people just don't have the balls to ask in the first place, but
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know. So there's no harm in asking. The worst they can say is no.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's like
and
one of
also,
our rules. Always ask.
yeah, great.
Because if you don't ask,
Yeah,
the answer is always no.
yeah, 100%. And to put it in context, that's like $250,
Yeah.
which is, yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And were you fearful at all, but when starting?
At the beginning, we weren't fearful to start the business because we had nothing invested into it really. And we also didn't go ahead and just quit our jobs because we suddenly started a business. We said we're going to hang on to our jobs because it's still our bread and butter, till the point that we're able to use the profits from the business to pay ourselves an equal salary. So we waited until the business was profitable enough for us to each take our current salary out of the business. And when that moment came along, essentially 1 year later from actually getting our first order, we said, now's the right time. We can actually close up things that we need to, close out the projects that we need to at work, and we can step away and into the business. So by the beginning of 2019, we essentially said we're stepping away out of the industry directly into our business, and then had to get set up with a very makeshift office type situation and a very makeshift um, warehouse type situation, which was pretty much just the home garage at the time, that we had to neaten up as best as possible so none of the products would get messed in any way. And that's that's the start of it. So that didn't come with much fear. But the moment that we got into the business and we were now salaried by the business, that's when the reality of it started to set in, because it's like, oh, if we can't make next month's sales targets, then we're not going to be able to take the salary that we need to pay for our basic expenses. So there was a little bit of fear there, but I think with the assistance of so many good mentors in our ears, whether it was people that we knew physically or podcasters, and people that we may have come across as business leaders in the space on YouTube, that kind of gave us all the confidence that we needed to really just get our heels dug into it and say, we're committing to this. We're If we're gonna go broke, let's go broke before 30, and we can make another plan later on. Thankfully, we had our parents to fall back on. So if we really, really tripped up, we had our parents to fall back on in terms of a living space, and we also still had our degrees to fall back on. But at the time, we didn't want a plan B. That was a plan B, like at the back of our mind, but we didn't want a plan B. We said if we're going to get our heels dug into this, we're going to see it through, as dirty and gritty and as uncomfortable as it was at the time. We're going to see it through until it's something that's significant enough that we can call an achievement. So thankfully, I think every year has just been a compound of exactly that mission, and hopefully it will just continue to compound.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Mm.
And how long did it take you guys to make that first sale from registering the business?
So business was registered in 2017, September of 2017, and the first sale, if I'm not mistaken, came around by March of 2018. So during that time, we had identified the industry that we wanted to go into. We had identified the products that we knew we were able to sell into the industry. And we had a general company image set up, which thinking back to it now was a little bit sketchy. And I would like question myself doing business with this company that has like dodgy looking, logos and things like that. So nothing was pretty at the beginning. But Ricardo and I, being in the engineering space and coming from a family of perfectionism, we had to be very intentional, very often about not letting perfect get in the way of good enough. And that's always something that we fought with. Until this day, we like perfection. We like things to be neat and tidy and all of the numbers to add up. But at the same time, we also can't let perfect get in the way of good enough, because if you're a startup, you're gonna pivot in a month or two or three. So there never is good, or there never is perfect. There's only good enough, and then you're gonna need to edit and edit again.
Yeah, I think a lot of people use perfection as an excuse to taking action. They let it slow down progress because they feel like it's not right. But like you said, a lot of people also don't even remember what the logo looked like when you first started. The company's a lot bigger now, and your clients don't even remember that. So
Yeah.
you're the only one that will remember it. And so you've got to, just be rough and ready and just make progress, keep moving forward.
Absolutely. That's one of our slogans in the business, is keep moving forward. Um, there there was a animation movie that I watched as a kid, and it's always kind of stuck with me. The slogan in it was keep moving forward. And essentially it was just an image of how the world as we know it today, they glorify success so much that failure looks like a bad thing. But at the end of the day, you don't learn from success, you learn from failure. So our thing has always been to throw us a problem, let us fail at the problem if we need to. We'll then find the answers that we need to for the problem, and we'll come back from it. So, yeah, keep moving forward is something that I literally have as my wallpaper on my phone, because that's all life and being in this kind of industry is all about. There's always going to be someone bigger, there's always going to be something to fail at, but we've got to just keep moving forward.
Definitely.
Mm.
And how long, or when was the moment you guys realized that you were onto something and like this is the direction you wanted to head in and keep going with this version of the business?
Probably 3 to 4 months after our first sale itself. So again, because we handle so many things in 3 month cycles, and we said we were going to reiterate after that, we said from the time of the first sale, if we've got the first sale, how can we expand the list of products that we're going to be doing and make it as similar as possible to this first sale, so that we're opening up more product ranges for this particular customer to be interested in. So as soon as we identified what that first product is, we then expanded the range of products from just 5 or 6 to probably 100 to 150 products within those 3 months very quickly. And once that started to
Wow.
catch with the client that we were initially serving, we said, okay, we're onto something here. If we're happy with how we're delivering the service to this client, how many more clients can we do this for? And are we able to solve more problems in this space? So essentially, within the first 3 months, we knew that we were onto something good. And if we continue to improve what we're doing, we're going to get a good outcome by the end of it. But, the funny thing is, 3 months came along, and yes, we did start to increase sales, but we also started to realize quickly that because big corporates do work during specific months and also take Christmas breaks and things like that, during the time that we expected to be, some a time that we could take possibly a 13th check, they were shutting down offices by the 15th of December. So then we'd go from the 15th of December, and then only really corporates would start kicking up again by the 15th of January. So we had one very dead month in between. And as we progressed year on year, we started to realize we can't do with this dead gap, and we can't just base all of our sales on these specific corporates. We have to find other ways to create sales and also deliver more solutions. So how can we do that? We started the online store. So by 2020, February of 2020, we launched the online store, not knowing that March of 2020 was going to be COVID. One of the
Yeah.
worst pandemics that we've seen in our lifetime. And suddenly, healthcare went from physical stores to online like that. And we wanted to be the people that could solve that problem and create a little bit of a niche in the space to bring healthcare and make healthcare more accessible to more people across South Africa. And when we started delivering the solution to retail customers across South Africa through the online store, we essentially did the same thing again. We just used the first 3 months as the trial. And during that first 3 months, we knocked the lights out because we were one of the few online stores that was SAPRA licensed, that were doing thermometers, pulse oximeters, nebulizers, things that people needed for their at-home monitoring. And essentially, as emails rolled in for new problems that customers had, do you have a cholesterol meter? Do you have a glucose meter? I have a particular type of disease. Do you have a monitoring kit for that particular type of disease? So we just started growing and expanding till we got to the point where now the online store is at more than 10,000 products.
Wow. And in terms of this, your split of business now, are you more focused on retail, or do you still work with the partners you were originally working with?
So we heavily retail now because we just wanted to firstly try to get as close to the people that needed the assistance the most. And when we essentially started the online store and ran it through COVID, 2021 came along and we said, we're not going to get remembered as that COVID store. We want to get remembered as the healthcare store to go to if you wanted products online. So we switched the entire narrative up by 2021 and we said, we're going to make this one of the best online health stores in South Africa. How do we do that? So we kind of set out to achieve exactly that. And by end of 2021, the question came up again, guys, I have a medical aid. This product is accepted on my medical aid. Are you medical aid approved so that I can put through my claim via you? So we said, okay, problem, let's find the solution. And by that time, we then got our clinical services license for a medical practice and started to deliver more solutions in the medical aid space. So currently, it's very retail orientated and medical aid orientated. But yes, we do still continue to assist our wholesale customers as they need it because we're still able to deliver those solutions. So if we need to help refurbishing an entire clinic, we help with that. If we need to help with the supply of specific products into large scale hospitals, then we're happy to help with that too. But for us to get to the area that we really want to be in, what we think will take us there is this new solution that we've started to implement a little bit harder inside of our company, which is solution in the medical aid space to just allow more products to be more accessible to medical aid customers across the country, and for them to be able to get these products delivered to them. If their local pharmacies and health stores don't have it, we're able to deliver those solutions in the medical aid space to them too.
Awesome.
Mm.
And I'm curious, you mentioned that your co-founder is your brother.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it like working with your brother
So
and starting a business with him?
yeah, we always had a close relationship, a good relationship. We were always very in sync with the way that we wanted to do things, and I think both of us, at the end of the day, came out with a very strong drive. So it kind of leaked into a lot of different places into our lives. So we, from the time that we were young, because we were only one grade apart in school, when he used to go to do competitive swimming, I essentially then followed after. And essentially, it came to a point where myself and Ricardo were KZN swimmers, KZN on the KZN team representing the province, and that kind of trickled into a lot of other places into our lives where we were like, how can we be the best that we possibly can be in these other areas too? So we essentially always try to push each other, encourage each other, and pick each other up when one was a little bit down and the other was a little bit more motivated. So we always bounced ideas, bounced support off each other. And I think we're lucky to have that also. A lot of siblings may not have the same mindset frequency, so they aren't able to operate on the same frequency. But if we were ever participating in group sports, it's almost as if me and Ricardo being together in that group sport was the cheat code to that team. So if we played on the same soccer team, or something similar, if we were just playing a game of FIFA and we were playing against someone else, our minds would be so in sync because we already know what to expect of each other. So it created a good base, of a good foundation for us to work with when we first got into this space. So the moment I started to take in a lot of the knowledge that I did during the time, I sent all of this over to Ricardo. He absorbed the knowledge, and then it just became a back and forth of us both sitting on the exact same algorithms on our different profiles, but it was different content. So, like I've mentioned to you before, the movie Pacific Rim, where you
Yeah.
need you need two pilots and their brains to be in sync with each other for them to control this very large giant structure. It's kind of how we see ourselves in the business. If our minds weren't in synchronicity with each other, there would have been some gaps in the business and there would have been more friction in the decisions that were possibly made at the time. So I think we're both lucky to have the relationship that we did, and our parents kind of instilled all of the right, values, morals, manners in us, so that we always respected each other. Because, like you mentioned now, at the beginning, when we started the business and we started to not just be brothers anymore, but co-directors, now there was a little bit more friction. And he came from a space where the mechanical engineering industry taught him how to handle the industry with a certain attitude. And I came from the consulting industry, which taught me a very separate attitude. So I was all like black and white and books and numbers and let's be formal about this. And he was like, how can we just push through to get the answer as quick as possible? Because he came from more of a contracting space, and I was in more of the consulting space. So when we brought these two ideas and manners of working together into our own business, we had to sit down on many occasions with each other and come up with a general consensus of what we're going to agree is the way and manner that we handle certain topics and handle certain problems that do come up, to the point that I think we probably had a conversation and we've gotten comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. It's a rule that we set up in each of our personal relationships, with the ladies in our lives and between each other and between the family also. A lot of families and siblings don't like to get comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. And so there's breaks in communication. So I'd rather sit down with him and tell him, what, Rick, the way you handled that particular problem with this particular person, I wasn't very happy with it, and vice versa, or the way that you requested these particular things from me on that particular day, I wasn't happy with the manner that you did it in. We'd rather have those uncomfortable conversations instead of hold grudges internally and let it stew and fester in us, but we're not moving forward from it. So there was a lot of that we first had when we started the business and had to come to a consensus of how we're going to set up the culture inside of Omninella, because us as the heads would have needed to create the culture for any employees or staff or partners that we started to connect with. to understand that that is our culture. And when that culture was created and we had a good understanding on it, that's when we sit down in meetings and have joint conversations with suppliers, they already enjoy us as the jockeys to the company. And even if the company doesn't have specifically something that they need, they just say, well, we really like you guys. How can we help you? And it's just been, that authenticity that we try and project all the time that has kind of strengthened our relationships and also made us more genuine to people that came in contact with us. So that's pretty much it.
Many would say, like, even having a co-founder, like the founder's journey is a lonely one. Have you found that to be the case?
So at the beginning, because we had each other, we'd bounce a lot off each other. We'd have general conversations a lot of the time. So it felt like we were filling each other with new ideas, new knowledge, new areas of like excitement. But as we started to like progress over the years, we found that if you are a founder by yourself in your own company, or even if you do have a co-founder, there's going to come a point where both of you are so synchronized that it's almost as if you would know what information is coming from that other person at any one point of time. So the way for us to now kind of spread ourselves, our mindset, and our network would be to find opportunities to speak to new people. So exactly like you are doing right now, it can get a bit lonely at sometimes, especially because it's not our corporate structure anymore. We don't have managers around, we don't have colleagues around, we don't have people to just bump into and have casual conversations and learn random stuff from. We're kind of learning stuff together, and it doesn't always allow us to bounce ideas off each other unless we come across podcasters or other documentaries or motivational or inspirational channels that exist out there, or just have to attend new networking events for us to have the opportunity to meet new people. So we love networking with people because in this space, you'll quickly find that every other founder or director also feels a little bit lonely. And so when you end up at these networking events, it's almost like a gigantic gathering of people that spend most of their time in their office by themselves. And now, when you come into this space, it's like that someone else may be excited to meet other people. And it's the people that are genuinely excited to meet others that we hope to bump into so that we can just bounce ideas off them, share ideas off them. And we've learned incredible things. We've been given incredible mentorship from people that we've either come into contact at church, or in the Belito community itself, or through the Chamber of Commerce in the North Coast. So a lot of that kept us fueled and feeling as if we were still networking and we were still growing our network, and it kept us away from the feeling of loneliness. But if for whatever reason we actually do happen to feel lonely or down for whatever reason, we also are very honest with each other about it. And if I'm just not up to it on one day, maybe I had a really long weekend and it's now Monday morning, I'll tell Ricardo, you know what, I'm a little bit down, short of energy. Can you pick up the slack that I know I'm going to drop today, just because this is what is kind of currently going on in my mind? So that's kind of how we've pushed against loneliness, and also just have discussions with people that were close to us if we ever did feel a little bit lonely, or we needed a little bit of motivation to keep going during that day or week itself.
And do you have a similar approach to something like burnout and managing and preventing burnout?
So burnout is something that came hard and fast for Ricardo and I in the first year to 3 years. We thought, it's the entrepreneurial space. We're gonna grind, we're gonna hustle, we're gonna go till all parts of the night and all parts of the morning to make sure that we're getting as much done. And then 2 years in, 3 years in started to arrive, and you're like, hang on, like we're not motivated to go to the office this week. Our bodies feel lethargic. Our minds feel foggy. We don't feel like exercising. So, like, what's going on here? So, we start to identify some of the symptoms that started to crop up when we have burnout. And essentially, since then, we've been very intentional about one, getting enough exercise in. So, we both, for instance, over the past years, have still swam the Midmar Mile, and we've still made ourselves very frequent guests at the gym to make sure that we're taking care of our bodies. Because if we started to drop on the health side, we started to drop in the mental side, which created a drop in our ability to focus and really be as productive as we wanted to be in the business. So burnout wise, it's like now we know what we did wrong in those first 3 years, and there's a time to grind and a time to go really, really hard. But there'll also be a time where your body starts to fail. And when I ended up in um, the emergency room because of overworking, lack of nutrients, or with the chiropractor or biokinetist because there's spasms in your back, in your lower back, through your legs, something's going wrong. And the simple answer is, have you maintained a good diet? Have you gotten enough exercise? And have you gotten out with friends and family to just slow down and enjoy yourself? It's simple things like that that actually we kind of threw aside for the first few years. And we had to pick it up again because we found that as soon as we started to drop that, the burnout started to kick in, which means that our productivity dropped, which means that there's a potential for the sales to drop and our ability to reach out to new partners to also drop. So we've been very intentional at fighting burnout. And ever since then, we asked one of our mentors, how do we celebrate a win? Because we don't really drink, we don't smoke, we don't do anything else that's hard or like nasty. So what do we do? To celebrate, we're not going to pop champagne. And he says, Nick, the best thing that you can do to celebrate is to take the rest of the afternoon off after you just felt like you achieved something and do whatever you want to do. Go to the beach and relax. Take a hike or a walk to your favorite spots and just be with nature. Spend time with your loved ones and just be with them and enjoy time and enjoy life. So ever since then, now if we have a birthday or if we have a celebration or if we've achieved some very big feat, we'll say, all right, let's make sure that all the tasks are done for the rest of the day. Let's leave the office. Let's just get a cup of coffee. Let's go out and have a nice lunch. And let's go out early and hit a 2K, 4K, 5K walk with our loved ones. Something as simple as that to just change the rhythm of how we celebrate it to being something that did our bodies and our minds a good service is the thing that we started to implement. And since then, we've drastically reduced burnout that we have felt in the first 3 years as compared to now. There are some heavy nights that we still have to get down and just grind it out during, but I think that comes with the space itself. Other than that, we are very intentional about rest and making sure that we get the right amount of it because we want to treat our bodies as high operating vehicles. And yeah, like any vehicle, if it doesn't get switched off to rest, it's gonna burn out sooner or later.
Yeah, that's some great advice. Um, and I've got a few closing questions before we end. I wanted to ask if you had any advice for someone considering starting their own business. What did you say to them?
Work on your mindset first. It's the most important. Work on your mindset first because at the end of the day, whether your business succeeds or fails, your mindset is going to make you who you are. Unfortunately, a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to expose themselves to enough things and expose their minds to enough things. So, for us, all we wanted to do at the beginning is have the ability to expose our minds to new topics, new areas of knowledge, new things we can learn, new solutions we could deliver, and it doesn't cost you much. YouTube is free these days. A lot of the podcasts that are on Spotify are free these days. So we essentially first worked on our minds, because you have to be a little bit insane to be a business owner, as Vusi Tembekwayo says. You have to almost be clinically insane, because when all the odds are stacked against you, when people tell you you're not good enough or you're going to fail, you have to be slightly insane enough to say, I'm going to do it anyways. And that's essentially, so we had to harden our minds at first, and put the right foundations in place, which is why I started out with those few books that I mentioned. So we put in the mental foundation that we needed. And after that, we put in the exposure that we needed. And exposure can come in the form of online platforms like YouTube, or it can come from the smartest person in your community that you know. Just go to them and have a sit down with them and ask them for advice, or ask them to point you in the right direction if they don't have the answers to certain questions that you are asking. And essentially, that allows you to fortify your mind for the difficulty that may be coming ahead. It allows you to expose your thoughts to new ways of thinking, new ideas, new industries, and that then will allow you to create a business that is stable enough. And if not stable enough, when you fail at the business, it'll allow you to learn enough so that the next step that you take will be even more successful. So that'll probably be it.
This isn't great. And before I end every conversation, I ask my guests if they have a question for me.
Yeah, so I'd probably like to ask, what is it that fuels you the most in life, and can you be doing more of it?
Interesting. Can I be doing more of it? Definitely.
Mhm.
And it's like it's learning as I grow. That's what I really enjoy doing, like having these conversations. And so that may come in the form of like doubling down and investing in the podcast. It may be working on some more personal projects. But most of the things that I gravitate towards are picking up projects or things that I enjoy doing, but I have to be learning in the process. I have to be pushing myself. I think that's what drives me and motivates me. If it comes too easy, I'm not really motivated to complete it. And so I'm always looking to like get myself out of my comfort zone. And I'd say I'm actually at a point now where I'm probably not pushing myself enough, and I need to sort of start that cycle again. It seems to always come in cycles. You take that leap, it's scary, you get used to it, then you're at another. You just like sort of level up. It's like a leveling up process. And yeah, this question has actually just caused me to reflect on that, and maybe I need to change some things up.
Please do. And I ask the question because I ask people sometimes, what's the purpose of life? And they say,
Is it?
Nick, I don't really know. And to my understanding, the purpose of life is to have the opportunity to live life as a three-dimensional being that can see, taste, touch, feel, and understand all the emotions that come in between. So when I usually wish people a happy birthday, I usually say a happy birthday. I wish you have the most mind-blowing experiences for the year ahead. Because at the end of the day, as humans, all that we have the ability to do in life is to experience as many things as possible. So please, if you haven't as yet done some mind-blowing thing for this year, make sure you put it on your to-do and you tick it off, because that's probably going to be one of the things that fuels you to do what you're doing and continue to do what you're doing.
I agree. I've done a couple of those this year, but I need to add more because they're complete. I stood on the wings of an airplane and rode around on a biplane, which is pretty cool. And I completed my first high rocks. So yeah,
Amazing.
but I think for this last part of the year, I need to definitely add another to that list.
Yeah.
Well, Thanks for joining me today, Nicolas. I really appreciate it. If people want to find out more about you and Omninela, where can they do so?
So Omninella, it's available on www.omninella.co.za. And if they'd like to get in touch with me, then my LinkedIn is the best place. I usually put out a lot of content business-wise on my LinkedIn, and I'm usually available through my DMs in my LinkedIn. So just hop onto LinkedIn, type in Nicolas Lognath as you see it on the screen right now, and you'll be able to pull up my LinkedIn profile. And if need be, you can connect with me via that, and also just keep updated with what's the latest with the company through there too.
Great. Thanks, Nicolas. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate you making it all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed the episode. One more quick reminder before you go. I have a weekly newsletter by the same name, Another Excuse, where I cover 4 topics: something that has changed my perception, a tool that could be useful to you, content that is actually worth consuming, and a concept that I try break down and explain. If this sounds of any interest to you and you need a kick up the arse, then you can subscribe at the link below. Thanks for joining me again, and I'll see you next week.